Welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion tonight on Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Joining us last but not least is Ofa Matagi, chair of the AAPI Democratic Caucus. And Ofa, I know you're a busy woman, so we appreciate you making time for us. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Rosie. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Ofa, as May is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, everyone is celebrating and reflecting in different ways. I've asked our last two guests this question. I'd like to hear about your feelings and experiences. What does this month mean to you?
You know, kind of just echoing off of what the other two had shared with us today is that, you know, it's a month of reflection, which I think is key. You know, we're not really able to move forward and progress as a community if we don't know where we've been, right? The things that we've overcome and the impacts that we've had on society. And so I think that's a key component of that. But also more to that is present day. What are we doing today to be able to actively move forward in this work of elevating and empowering AAPI, not just in the state of Utah, but across our country? And so, you know, Asian American Pacific Islanders is such a varied group. There's so many ethnicities within that, and so it's kind of complicated to pinpoint exactly what that looks like. But, you know, I think just being able, again, to be able to look at where we've come in regards to policy, you know, the Chinese Exclusion Act, you know, was the first of its kind here in our country. Banning a particular race, you know, coming here, and then from that spurs on this ongoing conversation about immigration reform. And then even going into social impacts, you know, the study of ethnic studies that came about from the civil rights movement in the 1960s and 1970s. And today, even here in Utah, if for those who have been, you know, keeping up with what's happening interim-wise up at the Hill and the critical race theory and how that very much is associated with each other, and being able to have these important conversations and studies in our curriculum with kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And so it's important to know where we've come from, but to also be able to project and see where can we go from here.
Now, earlier we talked about why representation and visibility is so important in places like the workplace and schools, but it's also important in elected positions. And this is something that you have personal experience with. I'd like to kind of dive into this and talk about how you have strived to add more representation in our political realm. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, thank you, Rosie. Great question. You know, growing up, I was born and raised in Utah. My parents migrated here when there was an influx of Pacific Islanders moving here to parts of West Valley and so forth on the west side. And I didn't really see anyone who looked like me in the community, more so anyone who looked like me serving in elected positions and positions of leadership and influence. And so, you know, I had seen Olene Walker, of course, become governor after moving from lieutenant governor to governor after Leavitt had left. And for me, I said, okay, Dad, like there's someone there, you know, here's a woman, maybe she's not Pacific Islander, but being able to see that momentum and see that the visibility. Visibility is so important to be able to see others who look like you, who are serving in those spaces. And so for me, you know, after seeing a phenomenal friend of mine, Beverly Weepy, who's the one of the councilwomen for Mill Creek, you know, I said, you know, why not me? Why can't I also be able to step up and serve my community for House District 33, West Valley City at that time, and then took that leap of faith and, you know, got involved in different candidate trainings and really wanted to be able to be a visible leader to show other people, other Pacific Islanders specifically, that women have a place and that Pacific Islanders have a place in the policies that are made at a judicial or at a legislative level.
I absolutely love that. I feel like you got into politics for the same reason why I got into journalism. And so everything that you've said in that last answer, I share those same sentiments as you. Ofa, we have about a minute left. I really want to get to this question. There's been some conversations, right, around the nuances with the acronym AAPI as it groups two distinct ethnic groups together as a whole. And this is a topic that we will dive a little bit deeper into a later show, but for now, for the sake of limited time in this conversation and to end the discussion on a positive note, how do we, as AAPI, work collaboratively to create unity, but also recognize the distinct uniqueness of the varied ethnicities within?
Right, and exactly as you stated, Rosie, it is so complex. There's multiple races and ethnicities within Asian American Pacific Islander. And a lot of the sentiments that I've heard, you know, because I've been going around, you know, telling people I'm excited, it's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and many Pacific Islander, you know, people were dismayed to an extent as they feel like their voices and their experiences haven't been represented in spaces that purport having a mission that's inclusive of AAPI. And so I strongly suggest for those who are Asian American Pacific Islander organizations to really be able to connect with those in the community that are doing that work specifically with Pacific Islanders and be able to create those spaces where we can work together collaboratively. You know, we have phenomenal organizations here in Utah like NTAS, National Tongan American Society, UPASEC, Utah Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Coalition, and UPIC, Utah Pacific Islander Health Coalition. And so there's so many organizations out there. I think if we are able to pull our resources together to make those relationships and connect, we can see a more collective and collaborative future for all AAPI.
And just reach out. I mean, Ofa is also a community leader here who is always, her inbox is always open, right, for anyone who is looking to make these connections and whatnot. Everybody on this show is. You've been hearing from Ofa Matagi, chair of the AAPI Democratic Caucus. Ofa, thank you so much for being here tonight and rounding out our conversation. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.